People love to say war doesn't change. It doesn't just test tactics and training, it tests people. It tests what people will excuse and what they will stay silent about. And in 2010, at a US Forward Operating Base, or FOB, in Afghanistan, designated Ramrod, one young soldier was initially afraid and hesitant to share what they knew was abhorrently wrong. This was a war crime.
On my orders, the United States military has begun strikes.
Afghanistan is the longest war in American history. America and its allies invaded the country. But nearly 20 years later, the conflict has achieved very little.
We turn next to court hearings today and a story that you think you only see in the movies. 5 soldiers charged with murder.
So we start on May 2nd, 2010, in a village near Kalagi. This begins with Mullah Adadad at home. He's sitting inside, drinking green tea, and his wife, Mora, is in the room with him. They have 7 children. Then, one of those children comes in with a message. American soldiers have arrived. Al-Adad isn't described here as a fighter or a wanted man. He's the village imam, someone coalition forces would normally need as an ally. So he walks out to speak with the soldiers, but the conversation doesn't happen. He's taken almost immediately. Later, Adam Winfield recalls seeing him in the village and thinking he looked harmless, friendly, and unarmed, Winfield said. Even so, the order comes down. Just put him down in that ditch right there. Put him on his knees. And then, one word, grenade! Usually, this means an attack is coming. In this case, it's a signal. A way to write what happens next as self-defense, even if the person in front of them doesn't have a weapon. According to Winfield's later statement, Morlock ordered him to shoot. Morlock told me to shoot, so I started shooting. That was that. Al-Adad dies right there. Later, Corporal Emmett Quintal says he saw Staff Sergeant Calvin Gibbs cut off what he thought was the victim's left pinky finger with medical scissors and remove a tooth while wearing surgical gloves. The tooth is offered to Winfield as a trophy, and Winfield later describes throwing it back down. Because May 2nd, 2010 wasn't the beginning, investigators would later focus on earlier killings too. Before we talk about the unit, the nicknames, or the courtroom, we have to talk about the people who lost everything. These are the names tied to 3 killings expected to be central early in the trials, and the ones Morlock and Winfield later admitted being involved in. Gul Muddin, killed on January 15th, 2010. Marach Agha, killed on February 22nd, 2010. And Mullah Adadad, killed on May 2nd, 2010. What makes these deaths stand out isn't only that civilians were killed, it's the pattern. Killing staged to look like self-defense, using a grenade call or a weapon left behind to make an unarmed person look like a threat after they're already dead. Later, after the May 2nd killing, an army investigation team comes to the village where an American soldier tells villagers the man was shot because he took an aggressive action, insisting, "We didn't just come over here and just shoot them randomly," and warning them that the Taliban used incidents like this to recruit. So how does a group of soldiers get to a point where grenade becomes part of the script? Well, back in the United States, it's Cape Coral, Florida. It's Sunday, February 14th, 2010, Valentine's Day. Christopher Winfield is having a normal Valentine's Day afternoon. It's sunny outside, and earlier, he and his wife kept things simple. Just before 3 o'clock, Christopher gets a message from his son Adam, deployed in Afghanistan. At first, Christopher doesn't even realize how strange it is. Afghanistan in the middle of a Florida afternoon? But in Afghanistan, it's close to midnight, and Adam doesn't want to talk on the phone. He tells his father to use Facebook chat, not a phone call, because he doesn't want anyone in the camp overhearing him. Christopher signs in, sits down at the computer, and answers. Adam doesn't start with, "How are you?" He starts with this: "Threats are coming my way." Christopher: "What threats?" Adam: "There are people in my platoon that can get away with murder. They planned and went through with it. Pretty much the whole platoon knows about it. It's okay with all of them pretty much, except me. I want to do something about it. The only problem is, I don't feel safe here telling anyone." For a moment, Christopher doesn't respond. And Adam comes back, almost panicked. Like he needs his dad to understand what he's saying. Adam says, "Do you not understand what I just told you? What people did in my platoon?" Christopher replies with one word: murder. Now the conversation turns into a kind of impossible decision. Because Adam is telling his father, if he speaks up, he could be in danger. But if he stays quiet, he's living next to people he believes just killed an innocent person and made it look clean. Adam says, "I have to make up my mind. Should I do the right thing and put myself in danger, or should I just shut up and deal with it? The army really let me down here. When I thought I would come here to do any good, maybe make some change in this country, I find out it is all a lie. There are no good men left here." Christopher does what a lot of parents would do in that situation. He thinks survival first. Christopher says, "Tell them that you'll be quiet. You must make these assholes think everything is okay. Just make them believe it is water past the bridge." And then he tells Adam to watch his back. Don't trust anyone. After that chat ends, Christopher starts calling everyone he can. The Army Inspector General's office, the Army Investigative Agency, and Florida Senator Bill Nelson's office. However, he keeps hitting answering machines. Finally, he calls Fort Lewis, the home base of Adam's brigade, and this time someone actually answers. A duty sergeant named James Beck picks up. Christopher tells him an innocent Afghan civilian was killed, and he believes other killings may have happened too. He says someone needs to stop it. The duty sergeant takes his number down, but says there's nothing he can do. The call lasts about 12 minutes. When Christopher hangs up, he waits. Hours go by, then days, then weeks, and he hears nothing back. And here's what makes the silence even darker. The killing Adam described wasn't something that happened that day. By the time Adam sent that message, the first stage killings investigators would later focus on was already a month old. To understand how a situation like this forms, you have to understand where Adam Winfield was stationed. FOB Ramrod was described as one of the most isolated and dangerous American bases in Afghanistan. Adam Winfield is 21 years old. He drove a Stryker, an armored fighting vehicle soldiers sometimes called a Kevlar coffin. And he's not out there in some movie version of a war where the enemy is always visible. The enemy is most certainly unseen. Night vision glimpses, buried mines, sudden explosions. The kind of war where you can spend days doing patrols that feel pointless. And then, without warning, an IDE goes off and somebody gets blown apart. Adam's unit had losses. The stress was constant. And then there's another piece that matters. The mission itself starts shifting. Instead of just hunting the enemy, the goal becomes winning trust, protecting civilians, talking to locals, living among them. On paper, it sounds humane. But for a lot of young soldiers, the switch doesn't come with a switch in mindset. Because you can't just train someone to kill, and then be shocked when some of them can't turn that off. And then, in November of 2009, a new staff sergeant arrives at Ramrod, Calvin Gibbs. He's described as a big man, towering over others, physically intimidating. And from the start, the tone changes. Gibbs doesn't just lead, he dominates. He humiliates people. He uses fear as a tool. And he zeroes in on Adam Winfield. Winfield is portrayed as the opposite of what Gibbs respects. Quieter, bookish, anxious about whether he's able to kill if it came down to it. And Gibbs punishes him. He embarrasses him in front of his other soldiers. He gives him a nickname, Winnie the Jew. And in that environment, a nickname like that isn't just cruelty. It's a warning label, something that tells everyone else, this guy is weak, this guy is fair game. Now take that kind of leadership, contempt for the local population, open brutality with subordinates, a culture of silence, and drop it into a place where death is random and the enemy is mostly invisible. That's the recipe. Sooner or later, they stop hunting the enemy and they start hunting a story they can sell. And on January 15th, 2010, in an area near West Kandahar, investigators say that's exactly what happened. The first time that grenade script really gets used, the way you heard it at the beginning. By the time Adam Winfield is sending that Valentine's Day message, he's not just scared of war, he's scared of the people standing next to him.
Or not, why am I the only one that's not okay with this?
And the name that keeps coming up in that story is Staff Sergeant Calvin Gibbs. Gibbs arrives at FOB Ramrod in November of 2009 after his predecessor loses both legs in a landmine explosion. He's described as a big, athletic, physically intimidating kind of man, the man who can fill up a room without even raising his voice. Morlock would later say Gibbs despises all Afghans. Other soldiers described him as someone who enjoys killing and who talks like the rules don't apply to him.
He is pretty much evil incarnate. Like, I've never met a man that's just can go for 1 minute just joking around and then mindless killing it. The next, he likes to kill things.
At one point, the investigation files described Gibbs being asked why he cut off the fingers of people who had been killed. And his answer was, because it is fun to scare people with them. He even joked about putting a finger into an aid package. And there's something else that matters here, because it explains how a unit can become quiet about things it should never be quiet about. Gibbs didn't only want obedience, he wanted a certain type of soldier, a kind who could kill without the slightest kind of regret. And in that story, Adam Winfield did not look like the kind of soldier. He was younger, quieter, bookish. He had anxiety about whether he could kill in combat, and what soldiers called buck fever, and Gibbs went after him for it. He made Winfield feel small. He called him Winnie the Jew. At that point, the nickname itself became Adam Winfield. The point wasn't just the nickname, it's what he did. That this guy is weak, this guy is isolated, this guy is not protected. Men like Gibbs don't just create a kill team by announcing it. They create it by changing what the group laughs at. They create it by making cruel feel normal. Fast forward to January 15th, 2010, west of Kandahar, where a teenager walks towards American soldiers because one of them waves him over. Adam Winfield's unit is out on patrol in a Stryker armored vehicle. Around 2,000 people live in La Muhammad Calais, and this region is regarded as a Taliban stronghold. The platoon's stated mission is to provide security for a meeting between US forces and village elders. Some of the soldiers weren't thinking about security. They were thinking about getting a kill. The main names connected to what happens next are Staff Sergeant Calvin Gibbs, Corporal Jeremy Morlock, and Private First Class Andrew Holmes. Winfield is there too, but he's in a different position. He's the driver, and when the others dismount and move towards the village, he stays in the Stryker to guard it. And that detail becomes important later, because it's part of the question that hangs over him. What did he know? What did he really understand what he was doing? According to what was later told to investigators, Gibbs had already given Morlock a grenade. The idea was to throw it during the operation so the killing could be framed as self-defense, a legitimate kill. And then, at around 9:30 that morning, a boy appears. His name is Gulmuddin, described as a young farmer's son. Morlock sees him and waves him over. The boy's only around 15 years old. Later, Morlock would say the boy probably just wanted to talk. When Gulmuddin is only a few meters away, Morlock tells him to lift his jacket so everyone can see he isn't wearing an explosive vest. And then, Morlock primes a grenade. He makes the spoon disappear in his pocket. And he calls out, "Grenade!" And he shouts, "Shoot him!" The grenade is thrown. It explodes near the boy. Shots are fired, 8 rounds. A according to the account I have. When it's over, Gul Muddin is dead. Then, according to the same account, the soldiers run towards the body, cut his clothes open, and take photographs. Morlock lifts the boy's head while someone takes a picture, and he orders Holmes to take a photo too. A little later, Gibbs shows others a little finger. Then they retreat. When they climb back into the Stryker, their reaction tells you everything. They're high in spirits, they're celebrating, they're giving high fives. It's like they just won a game. And slowly, Adam Winfield begins to understand what must have happened out in that field. Then the others show him the photos. Trophy pictures. The boy was only 15 years old, and of course, completely innocent. It was there that Winfield realizes something that doesn't leave him. He's now aware of the unit's secret, and he senses that the secret could be fatal for him too. He feels miserable and scared. His guilt eats at him for days, and then he remembers an email to his father. Terrible things are happening here, but I cannot talk about it. But he would end up talking. And the question is, why? Was it because he decided to do the right thing? Or because the people around him made it clear there was no safe way out unless he became one of them? After the first killing, Adam Winfield isn't just carrying fear, he's carrying knowledge. And at FOB Ramrod, knowledge can get you hurt. Winfield is shy and intellectual, and according to his parents, he would check multiple encyclopedias to look up a topic, and sang in a church choir. He joined the military young, pushing his parents to sign because he wanted to prove that he could be a man. But in Afghanistan, the reality that hits him isn't heroic. His unit takes losses, the enemy is hard to see until someone gets blown up, and the base feels miserable, crowded, dirty, lonely. And then Calvin Gibbs arrives and the social rules shift overnight. And soon enough, Winfield's guilt starts turning into instability. He talks about ending himself, sometimes saying he wants to be blown up by a landmine, and other times implies he wants to shoot Gibbs. The volatility doesn't just endanger him, it makes it dangerous to the group, because it makes him unpredictable. Morlock later describes Winfield like a man switching masks to survive. 1 minute disgusted, the next minute acting like he's on board, saying things like, "I'll be with you to do this stuff." And from that point on, Winfield believes Gibbs is watching him, and the others already think he has talked. Winfield says Gibbs already threatened him with a piece of pipe, and another soldier warns him that Gibbs is taking you out, even floating a scenario about dropping a weight on his chest in the gym. So Winfield tries to do what his father advised in that Facebook chat. He takes to look safe, look loyal, look quiet. He allegedly tells people to let Gibbs know he'd never rat because he believes Gibbs would kill him. And according to other soldiers, Gibbs comes to a cold conclusion. If Winfield is a risk, the only way to neutralize that risk is to make him cross the line himself, because once you've done it too, you don't talk. A week after that Valentine's Day message, the kill team strikes again, and this time, Winfield isn't even with them on the ground. Gibbs can't use him as a foot soldier anymore. Winfield is pushed into the driver role. The second killing occurs on February 22nd, 2010. The victim is an Afghan man named Marak Agha, and the method investigators describe isn't random violence, it's a template. According to the investigation, Gibbs brings an old Kalashnikov, and the idea is simple. Leave behind a Russian weapon, and it becomes a story, a ready-made explanation for why the Americans had to shoot. Agha is sitting next to a wall. The Americans look around to make sure he's alone. Then Gibbs fires the Kalashnikov, not at Agha, but into the area, like sound effects meant to give the moment a backdrop. After that, Gibbs uses his M4 and shoots Agha. When Agha is dead, the Kalashnikov is dropped at his feet. And this is what the word stage really means in a case like this. It's not just killing, it's preparing the paperwork ahead of time. It's planning the lies so it fits inside the system that's supposed to catch lies. And back at the base, Winfield spirals. He's carrying the first death. He hears about the second, and his behavior becomes erratic. Guilt and anger, fear and survival, switching back and forth. And the more unstable he looks, the more he believes he's being watched. By this point, Winfield isn't just asking, should I report this? He's asking, how do you report someone when the people you'd report to are the same people who can bury you out there? And then May 2nd, 2010 arrives, the day Winfield is ordered to go out on patrol. And that's the day Mullah Adadad's murder is set up with a grenade, the account you heard at the start of this case. The patrol claimed Mullah Adadad attacked them with a grenade, and an army investigation team was told that he was shot because he took, quote, an aggressive action. In fact, the unit insisted they didn't just come over here and shoot randomly. Well, I agree with them there. It wasn't a random shooting. It was a calculated and deliberate act of murder against an innocent civilian. You know, the very reason for entering Afghanistan in the first place was to respond to terrorism. The sad thing is, these very incidents are what extremists used to recruit. Because how can one trust the aggressor when they murder and frame innocent civilians and hide the truth from the world? Can you even blame the extremists at that point? Within the unit, something changes. Winfield later says Gibbs told him how he's now a, quote, made man. Winfield interprets this as trust, the sense that he doesn't have to worry about Gibbs turning on him anymore. And then Winfield gets a new nickname, Bear Jew. I think it's also a reference to the Quentin Tarantino movie Inglourious Bastards. If you haven't seen it, do watch. One day after that third killing, another soldier from the unit returns from a week's leave. His name is Justin Stoner. When Stoner walks into his room, he notices something right away. His comrades have been smoking hashish in his absence. Out there, being under the influence can ruin you, so Stoner reports it to the company leader and a record is made. It doesn't take long for Gibbs to hear about it, and according to Stoner's later testimony, the response isn't a lecture or discipline or even a threat from leadership. It's revenge. Stoner later says their best response was to get together and beat me up. On the afternoon of May 5th, a group of soldiers enter Stoner's room, 7 of them. Supposedly, this is Gibbs, Morlock, Quintel, and David Bram. Winfield is not there. Inside Stoner's room, Gibbs starts out polite, almost calm, saying he's sorry things have happened the way they did. Then, according to the testimony, he tells Stoner what this is really about. He wants to make sure Stoner, quote, shut the fuck up from here on out. They hit him, they kick him, they throw him down by the ankles, and they're careful about one thing. They avoid his head so his superiors won't notice. Afterward, Gibbs comes back and pulls mummified fingers out of his pocket. Morlock tells Stoner, hey dude, you know, if you don't keep your mouth shut from now on, it's pretty apparent that Gibbs here can kill people, has killed people, and is pretty willing to do it if he has to. Stoner goes to Gibbs' superior to complain, and when he's told to go back to his room, Stoner refuses. He says, I don't want to die here like those innocent Afghans. On May 7th, Stoner is taken from Ramrod to Kandahar and questioned for 3 days. He tells investigators, the reason that I fear for my life is that my unit is notorious for going on patrol, finding an innocent civilian, and killing them without reason. And back at Ramrod, Gibbs tells the team he's survived investigations before and that nothing will happen as long as everyone keeps their mouth shut. But this time, somebody does talk. The whole situation shifts. The kill team's power isn't just the weapons, it's the assumption that nobody will ever push this far. On May 11th, after hours of questioning, Jeremy Morlock admits to the 3 murders, and once Morlock talks, he agrees to testify against others in exchange for a more lenient sentence.
No, but that's not what we were aware of.
Where did he stand him? Next to a wall?
Yeah, it's kind of next to a wall. It's where Gibbs could get like behind cover after the grenade went off, and then he kind of placed me off over here to have like a clean line of sight for this guy.
and he pulled out one of his grenades, American grenade. Popped it, throws the grenade, and then tells me, "All right, dude, whack this guy, kill this guy." You don't want to cross paths with Gibbs ever at all. When it comes to killing people, it's too easy for that guy.
That same day, Gibbs is arrested. More than 24 soldiers are questioned. Laptops, cameras, and media are confiscated. They find thousands of images, around 4,000 photos, documenting atrocities and war horrors. Because those images aren't just evidence of violence, they're evidence of a culture. There's more to just fingers, skulls, and limbs collected. It describes photos traded like baseball cards inside the brigade. And even the military seems to understand what that means if it gets out. The Pentagon fears global outrage like Abu Ghraib, fears the relationship with Afghan civilians deteriorating even further, and fears revenge attacks or terror attacks tied to what these images represent. When civilians are killed and then labeled as aggressors, when families are told their loved ones took aggressive action, that's not just injustice, that's fuel. It teaches a village that there's no truth that will protect them, and it hands extremists a message they don't even have to invent. On May 12, 2010, Adam Winfield is questioned. He admits he took part in the third killing. He says, "I don't know if it was my bullets that killed him or the grenade that killed him, but I was still a part of it." And he calls it pretty much the worst thing I've ever done in my life, like to the man, his family. Not long after that, back in Cape Coral, Florida, the phone rings. A major calls the Winfields and tells them Adam is back home. For a moment, his mother feels relief. Then the major adds the rest. "Your son has been charged with deliberate homicide." Months pass, and on Tuesday, December 14th, 2010, Winfield appears before a military tribunal at Lewis McCord near Seattle. He's in uniform. 12 soldiers are charged in relation to the murders and other incidents, including allegations like desecration of corpses, possession of images of human casualties, drug abuse, and assaulting other soldiers. But the part that lingers, the part that should linger, is that the Afghan families are the ones who live with the cost forever. Gul Muddin, Marak Agha, Mullah Adadad. All I can confirm from the public reporting is this. As of October 2010, relatives of Mullah Adadad and Marak Agha said they'd received neither an apology nor any compensation payment. What happened after that is unclear. If they were given anything after, it never became part of the public record in a way I can verify. And if that's true, it's shameful. And that is a moral question that the story leaves you with. If a soldier is trapped inside a system where telling the truth can get him killed, what does the right thing actually mean? Do watch one of my other videos on screen. Thank you.